In Washington, D.C., Herbert Hoover stood before the nation as its newly inaugurated president. His message was optimistic, confident, almost triumphant. America, he said, had entered an era of unmatched comfort, stability, and opportunity. Poverty was fading. Freedom was expanding. The future, in his words, looked bright. And on the surface, it really did. A nation riding high. At the same time Hoover took office, one number dominated conversations on Wall Street: 381. That was the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the highest it had ever reached. For nearly a decade, the stock market had done nothing but climb. Since 1921, stock prices had multiplied several times over, creating a sense that investing was no longer risky, it was inevitable. Everyone wanted in. Not just wealthy bankers or industrial leaders, but everyday Americans, factory workers, small business owners, even teenagers shining shoes outside office buildings. The belief was simple: stocks only went up. Easy money, easy confidence. One reason the boom spread so quickly was access. You didn't need much money to invest. Banks and brokers were happy to lend it to you. This practice, known as buying on margin, allowed investors to put down a small fraction of a stock's price, sometimes as little as 10%, and borrow the rest. If prices kept rising, you sold, repaid the loan, and pocketed the profit. It felt like free money. People borrowed against their homes, against their businesses, against their entire future. Why wouldn't they? The market had never failed them before. Debt beneath the boom. But stocks weren't the only place debt was piling up. Across the country, easy credit fueled rapid expansion. Businesses borrowed to grow. Families bought appliances, furniture, and cars on installment plans. Henry Ford's affordable Model T, sold on credit, helped ignite massive growth in steel, oil, glass, and rubber industries. Even American farmers borrowed heavily. During World War I, farms had expanded production to feed the world. After the war, they kept producing, but demand dropped. The result? Too much supply, falling prices, and farmers struggling to repay loans taken out for land and machinery. Quietly, the economy was filling with bad debt. Warning signs ignored. By 1929, some institutions began to worry. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York raised interest rates, hoping to slow reckless borrowing in the stock market. But that decision rippled outward. European central banks followed suit, tightening credit in countries still recovering from World War I. Economic pressure mounted overseas. Meanwhile, a few respected analysts publicly warned that stock prices were dangerously inflated. Small market dips followed, but each time prices bounced back. Confidence remained unshaken. Until it wasn't. Black Thursday. On October 24, 1929, the stock market opened to chaos. Almost immediately, panic spread across the trading floor. Orders to sell flooded in. No one knew why, only that everyone else was doing it. Within minutes, billions of dollars in value vanished. The ticker machines couldn't keep up. Prices reported in cities like Chicago and San Francisco were hours out of date. Outside the exchange, crowds gathered, sensing disaster. Rumors flew, including stories of traders leaping from windows. Those stories weren't true, but fear doesn't wait for facts. A temporary rescue. Behind closed doors, America's most powerful bankers met. They remembered the panic of 1907 and how coordinated action had saved the system. Pooling their money, they sent a message. A senior exchange official stepped onto the trading floor, and placed massive buy orders for major companies at prices above market value. It worked, briefly. By closing bell, losses were reduced. But the damage was done. Margin calls spread panic nationwide. As prices fell, brokers demanded repayment. Margin calls went out across the country. Suddenly, ordinary Americans were told they owed hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars immediately, sums that in 1929 were impossible to raise overnight. People tried to sell anything they could, but it wasn't enough. Black Monday and Black Tuesday. On October 28th, selling resumed with even greater force. Many investors didn't want to sell, they had to. Prices collapsed faster than people could react. By the end of the day, the Dow had lost nearly 13% more. The next morning, October 29th, the market continued its free fall. There were no buyers, only sellers. Paper fortunes became worthless slips abandoned on the trading floor. In just 2 days, nearly a quarter of the market's value was gone after the crash. The crash itself didn't cause the Great Depression, but it exposed every weakness beneath the surface. Banks failed, loans collapsed, unemployment surged. While the stock market eventually recovered, the economy did not, at least not quickly. Consumer confidence was shattered, savings disappeared, spending slowed at exactly the wrong moment. Factories closed, construction halted, entire cities fell into hardship, a decade of hardship and survival. The years that followed brought dust storms, protests, and mass unemployment, but they also brought resilience. Americans endured, they adapted, they rebuilt. The Wall Street crash of 1929 became more than a financial disaster. It became a warning, a reminder that unchecked optimism, easy money, and borrowed confidence can collapse overnight. And yet, even in the darkest times, recovery is possible. Because history doesn't just show us how things fall apart, it shows us how they come together.